In this video, I'm going to react to how big the USA actually is. Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Kabir Considers. This is the place where I react to music, media, sports, anime, anything related to popular culture. I'll watch it with an open mind and give you my 100% honest reaction to it. And if you could please hit that like button early, I'd really appreciate it. Now, this is a video that I would watch in my spare time. This is the kind of thing that I really enjoy watching. I'm a big fan of geography. I like, learning about different places, different land masses, things like that. The USA is a place that I've been to a couple of times. I've been to New York, I've been to Florida a few times as well, and Maryland, Baltimore, Maryland. But I've never really gained a scope as to how big the entirety of the nation is. I'm aware that it's got quite a few states. I believe it's 50 states, and obviously some states will be bigger than others. But because, I was born and raised here in the UK, and, so because I've spent the bulk of my life here, my sort of gauge for a country's size is kind of defaulted back to what I'm accustomed to, which is the UK is quite a small country, and within the UK we obviously have England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales. So it's going to be interesting to learn just how big the US is. Obviously the US is the biggest economy in the world, but I'd be interested to know in terms of landmass, scale, actual size, how big the country actually is. So let's go. This is going to be me reacting to how big the USA actually is. Let's do it.
The United States is currently the world's sole superpower with military installations around the world. As a country, its geography spans from subtropical forests to rolling plains, scorching deserts, and Arctic wastes.
So very varied.
But just how big is the US really in comparison to the rest of the world? Hello and welcome to another episode of the Infographics Show. Today, we're taking a look at how big the US really is. The US is approximately 5,680,000 square miles, with terrain that varies dramatically. Only Russia at 10.6 million square miles and Canada at 6,205,000 square miles are larger than the US.
Only Russia
its three biggest states,
Canada.
Alaska at 663,000 square miles, Texas at 270,000 square miles, and California at 160,000 square miles. Combined would be the 17th largest nation in the world, immediately after Sudan at 1.15 million square miles,
just
and right
three
before
states.
Libya at 1 million square miles. In total, the US is larger than the 107 smallest countries in the world combined. With about 327 million people, the United States is also the third most populated nation on Earth, having a total of 4.28% of the total world population, with a net yearly migration rate of approximately 900,000 people. The US is by far the one place the rest of the world wants to live, with Germany coming in second at 350,000 migrants, and Turkey in third with 325,000 migrants. In the US, 83% of the population lives in cities, with its three most populated cities being New York City with 8.5 million people, Los Angeles with 4 million people, and Chicago with 2.7 million people. All combined, the population of the US's three biggest cities is equal to the population of Chad with 14.5 million people. Just these three cities alone are also more populated than Cuba with 11.5 million people, Belgium with 11.3 million people, and Greece with 11.2 million people. When counting the greater metropolitan area, New York City is the 10th largest city in the world, with a total population of 18.6 million people, just behind Cairo with 18.8 million people, and just ahead of Dhaka with 17.6 million people. This would make the greater New York City area the 63rd largest country in the world, just ahead of Syria with 18 million people.
That's nuts.
The US is the world's largest economy, with a gross domestic product of $20.4 trillion, or 23.3% of the total global economy.
That is a lot of money.
China is just behind the US at $14 trillion and 16.1% of the total global economy. When measured by purchasing power parity, or the price of goods and services versus individual incomes, the US comes at number 2 to China, whose GDP PPP is $25.2 trillion. This means that while the Chinese economy is about 30% smaller than the US's, Chinese individuals have on average 20% greater purchasing power in their own country.
Interesting.
The three
I wonder
biggest
why that
economies
is.
within the US states are California with a GDP of $2.6 trillion, Texas with a GDP of $1.6 trillion, and New York with a GDP of $1.5 trillion. Altogether, these three states would be the world's third largest economy, just ahead of Japan with
incredible.
a GDP of $5 trillion. California's economy alone is as big as the United Kingdom, Texas's is as big as Canada's, and New York's is as big as South Korea's. The United States also has the best equipped military in the world, though it's only the third largest at 1,282,000 active duty personnel.
To be honest, you don't really
Ahead
need
of
that
it
many
are
active
India
duty
with
personnel these
1.4
days.
million active duty personnel,
Due to,
and China with 2.1
cyber
million
warfare.
active duty personnel. The U.S. spends over $610 billion on its
And
military
drones as
every
well.
year, or 3.1% of its total GDP. 35% of the world's total military expenditure, and more than the next 9 nations combined. Just behind it are China with $150 billion in expenditures, and Saudi Arabia with $76 billion in expenditures. The United States also has the most military bases in the most foreign countries in the world, with approximately 800 military installations in 80 countries.
Wow.
Possibly more military
80
bases in more
countries.
foreign lands than any nation or empire in history. The cost of maintaining these bases alone is about $156 billion, more than China spends on its entire military. On the civilian side, the U.S. has the world's third largest police force, with 913,000 total police officers, placing it just behind India at number 1 with 1.9 million police officers, and China with 1.6 million police officers.
Wow,
In the
India
realm
has
of
1.9
healthcare,
officers.
The U.S. is the most expensive nation on earth, with a health expenditure per capita of $10,350,
Wow.
placing it ahead of Switzerland at $7,900 and Germany at $5,550.
That's a lot, $10,000
While
on
on
health
average,
insurance.
the rest of the world spends about 10.3% of its GDP on healthcare. The U.S. spends 18% of its GDP on healthcare. The United States is a large, complex nation, big enough to host several different distinct accents within its own borders. Its people are hardworking and industrious, leading the world's economy. But despite what recent political events might indicate, they're also the most welcoming nation in the world, with 3 times the number of immigrants than nations in either the number 2 or number 3 spot in a global comparison.
The U.S. isn't the only welcoming place in the world. We've never felt more welcomed than when we signed up with Wix.
Wow, a lot of those numbers were just unbelievable. So the GDP of the country, 20.2 trillion US dollars. That is just, it's one of those numbers that it's hard to visualize that much money. That much money, it's just it would fill virtually every stadium probably in this country. And the fact that California and Texas, so California, Texas, and New York combined would be the 6th largest country in terms of its GDP. So just 3 out of the 50 states, if they were to combine and form their own separate state as a joint state, they would be the 6th largest country in terms of earning power. Just amazing. Yeah, the US is obviously extremely powerful country, highly influential. Obviously, the geopolitical scene is shifting a little bit in terms of China's prominence is growing rapidly, but the US is still top of the food chain for sure. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, and keep throwing the recommendations my way. I know I say it all the time, but they genuinely help me out, because if I know you enjoyed watching something, I'll definitely enjoy reacting to it. So like, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, keep throwing the recommendations, and I'll catch you in the next one.